Leo Tolstoy once said, "All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." Buying a car can feel the same way. Regret comes in many forms. But what exactly causes people to regret buying a car? From a psychological standpoint, regret is a common response to decisions made under uncertainty. At the moment of choice, you believe you're making the right call. But later, when expectations don't match reality, that decision may start to feel like a mistake. In the context of car buying, this regret often stems from a psychological gap between what you thought you were getting and what you actually experience. It's a bit like a relationship. After spending time together, the guy might feel like the girl isn't as gentle as before, and the girl might feel the guy has lost his patience. The same thing happens with cars. Initial excitement can fade into disappointment. One of the biggest sources of regret comes down to vehicle configuration. What's included in the car and what's not. When you test drive a vehicle, you're often in a fully loaded, top-tier model, packed with every imaginable feature. But when it comes time to make the actual purchase, most buyers pick a trim level that fits their budget, which often means missing out on some of the conveniences they fell in love with during the test drive. Once the car is home, you may realize you've skipped features you'd actually use daily, like ventilated seats, a lifesaver in summer, heated seats, a winter essential, or keyless entry, which works just like a smart lock. You just grab the handle and go. No fumbling for keys. Interestingly, regret doesn't only come from missing features. Sometimes it comes from choosing too many unnecessary ones. Car buyers can easily be swayed by flashy ads or dealership upsells, especially when it comes to mid to high-end trims. You might end up paying for features that sound great, but offer little real-world value. Take automatic parking, for example. It sounds futuristic, but in practice, it's often more of a gimmick than a game changer. If you can manually park in a tight space, the system probably can too, but if you can't, it probably won't help either. There's no such thing as a perfect car, only the car that fits your real needs. Knowing that, the key to avoiding regret is to shop based on long-term practicality, not short-term excitement or showroom sparkle. One of the most frustrating reasons for car buying regret is discovering quality problems after the purchase. When you buy a car, you're usually limited to a short test drive, but many issues don't show up until weeks or months down the road. It's a lot like buying a smartphone. When you try it in-store, it feels smooth and takes great photos. But after a few months of daily use, it starts to lag or glitch. The same applies to cars. A common example is the 7-seater SUV. Many buyers imagine it's perfect for family road trips. Bring along kids and both sets of parents. It sounds like a practical choice on paper. And during the test drive, it feels spacious enough. But in reality, many so-called 7-seaters simply add 2 small seats in the trunk area. Sure, people can sit there, but there's no room left for luggage and comfort is limited. Over time, these vehicles earn the nickname fake 7-seaters or fake SUVs. The third row is often tight, uncomfortable, and impractical, especially for adults. After a few family trips, buyers may regret not considering how often and how comfortably they'd really use those extra seats. Aside from the car itself, economic factors also play a big role in buyers' remorse, especially when it comes to pricing. One common frustration is buying at the wrong time. With today's increasingly aggressive automaker price wars, discounts and incentives change constantly. It's not uncommon for buyers to discover that the same model is selling for less just days after they sign the contract. Manufacturers around the world are battling for market share, and price cuts are a common tactic to drive up short-term sales. Unfortunately, this leaves some consumers feeling like they overpaid through no fault of their own. Whether it's a missed detail in configuration, hidden quality issue, or a sudden market price drop, car buyer regret is often rooted in one thing: expectation versus reality. Another common source of regret comes when the cost of using the car turns out to be higher than expected. People often feel disappointed or frustrated when reality doesn't match their expectations. For example, before buying a car, you might read that it gets 8 liters per 100 kilometers, about 29 miles per gallon, which seems reasonable. But after a few weeks of real-world driving, you discover it's closer to 9.5 liters per 100 kilometers, about 25 miles per gallon. While that fuel difference may not break the bank, it can still feel disappointing, especially if you factor fuel efficiency into your purchase decision. And it's not just fuel. Parking costs are often overlooked entirely. In many cities, parking is expensive and hard to find, and monthly fees can add up fast. People who didn't consider parking before buying often end up with regrets. Humans are naturally wired to get used to things over time, a psychological concept known as the Weber-Fechner law. It explains how the same stimulus produces diminishing emotional impact with each repetition. This is called the law of diminishing marginal utility, and it absolutely applies to cars. At first, your new car is exciting. It smells great, drives smooth, and makes you feel proud. But after a few months, the thrill wears off. Those special features you loved, you barely notice them anymore. Eventually, the emotional high fades, and you may even start fantasizing about your next car. Combine this with the other factors we've discussed: unexpected costs, missing features, underwhelming performance, and it's easy to understand how buyer's remorse can creep in. One final note: many people struggle to choose between a sedan and an SUV. Even after researching specs, pros, and cons, they still feel unsure. If you find yourself in this situation, don't overthink it right away. Instead, start by asking yourself these 4 key questions. They may help point you in the right direction. Coming up next, the 4-question framework to help you choose the right car for your lifestyle. Question 1. What's the parking situation where you live? The first and most basic thing to consider is this: is parking convenient where you live? This is something that's often hard to change. While parking spaces are technically designed to accommodate SUVs, the reality doesn't always match the theory, especially in older residential areas in big cities, where parking layouts were added later and often don't meet standard dimensions. Many SUV owners only realize after buying their vehicle that parking becomes a daily struggle. No fixed parking spot, narrow community streets lined with parked cars, tight parallel parking situations. If your neighborhood is like this, it's worth taking a moment to observe the cars your neighbors are driving and see how much space is available. If most people drive compact sedans or hatchbacks, it might be a sign that larger vehicles like SUVs are difficult to maneuver or park in your area. Question 2. What are the road conditions in your area? Next, take a look at the roads you drive on every day. Are there a lot of potholes, bumps, or uneven surfaces? We're not just talking about dirt roads. Even in urban areas, roads can be rough due to ongoing construction, temporary road closures, or poor infrastructure maintenance. If you regularly drive over patched asphalt, cracks, dips, or curbs, road quality matters a lot. In these situations, an SUV may actually be the better choice. SUVs typically have higher ground clearance, making them less likely to scrape the underside. Thicker tires, larger sidewall ratios, which absorb more impact from potholes. A ride that's more forgiving over bumps, much like wearing thick-soled athletic shoes compared to dress shoes. If your daily route is full of minor hazards, an SUV can provide more protection and peace of mind, not to mention fewer repair bills for suspension damage or scraped bumpers. Question 3. What kind of driving posture do you prefer, upright or reclined? Driving posture plays a big role in long-term comfort. So ask yourself, do you prefer sitting more upright, like on a chair, or more reclined, like lounging on a sofa? As drivers, we often spend a lot of time behind the wheel. In general, SUVs offer more upright seating position, similar to sitting in a chair at a desk. Sedans, on the other hand, tend to have a lower driving position, like reclining on your couch while watching TV. Interestingly, research has shown that different postures put different amount of pressure on your spine, particularly on the third lumbar vertebra. An upright sitting position equals 100% spinal load. A semi-reclined position equals just 25% load. This is one reason many drivers feel that sedans are more comfortable for longer drives. However, others prefer the higher seating position of an SUV, which offers a better view of the road, less glare from oncoming lights, thanks to a more upright windshield, a feeling of confidence and visibility, especially in traffic. If you're unsure which style suits you better, borrow a friend's SUV for a day or rent one for a weekend road trip. A little hands-on experience can make the decision a whole lot easier. Question 4. How often will you actually use all that space? Finally, think about this. If you buy an SUV, how often will you actually use the extra space and seats? SUVs are great for large families or frequent group travel. If your household includes kids and grandparents living under the same roof, an SUV's larger trunk and extra legroom make it a practical necessity. But for many people, the reality is different. Most households today are small families, often just a couple and one child. After buying an SUV, it's not uncommon for only one or two seats to be occupied regularly, while the rear seats stay empty most of the time. When that happens, the full value of the SUV isn't being utilized. And here's another point to consider. SUVs in the same class as sedans are typically more expensive up front, but their resale value often drops faster than that of sedans. So from a cost efficiency perspective, you might end up spending more without fully using what you paid for, which can lead to buyer's remorse down the road. In short, if you find yourself torn between a sedan and an SUV, the best thing you can do is to look closely at your actual lifestyle needs and carefully think through the questions we just discussed. When you approach the decision from a place of real-life practicality, you'll be able to make a choice that's more relaxed, objective, and clear-headed, and far less likely to lead to regret.